In a story that shocked millions, one mother's desperate attempt to help her son went horribly wrong, threatening not just his career, but the safety of the entire palace. Mom nearly compromises royal security. Social media stunt goes terribly wrong. Royal Guard's true identity revealed. But this isn't just another viral video story. This is about a mother who learned the hard way that sometimes the person you're trying to protect is the one protecting everyone else. Before we dive into this incredible story that's taken the internet by storm, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Drop a heart in the comments if you've ever had a parent embarrass you, but I bet it wasn't quite like this. The morning sun painted Windsor Palace in hues of gold, casting long shadows across Queen's Square. Tourists gathered with their phones and cameras, eager to capture the perfect shot of Britain's most iconic residence. Among them stood Linda Mitchell, a woman on a mission that would soon turn this peaceful morning into chaos. Linda wasn't your typical tourist. At 52, she was a mother who thought she knew best, armed with a new TikTok account and a determination that would make most teenagers cringe. But today wasn't about gaining followers or going viral, at least not initially. Today was about her son, David. Hello everyone! Linda here, coming to you live from Windsor Palace. She beamed at her phone, adjusting her designer sunglasses. My baby boy David is one of these guards, and Mama Bear is here to show everyone how they're working him too hard. The irony? Dave Mitchell had spent years training to become a royal guard, achieving his dream despite, not because of, his mother's constant interference. What Linda didn't realize was that her son wasn't just any guard. He was part of an elite unit, trained for more than just ceremonial duties. Linda strutted across Queen's Square, her confidence growing with each comment that popped up on her live stream. You show them, Linda. Mother of the Year. This is gonna be epic. Her floral dress and matching handbag stood out against the formal atmosphere of the palace grounds. Every few steps, she'd pause to narrate her mission to her growing audience. You see these guards? Standing here all day in the hot sun. My David's been doing this for 3 years, and does he get a proper break? No. Well, Mama's here to change that. What Linda didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that her son was currently coordinating a covert security operation. Intelligence had warned of a potential threat to the palace, and David was the key officer in charge of the response team. As Linda approached the first guard post, her phone held high. She had no idea she was about to trigger a chain of events that would test not just her relationship with her son, but the very security of Windsor Palace itself. Watch this, everyone, she whispered to her phone, her followers now numbering in the hundreds. I'm going to show you how these poor boys are treated. And somewhere in this line of guards is my David, probably dying of heat in that ridiculous hat. Officer Emma Thompson, watching from her plainclothes position near the gate, noticed Linda's approach. She reached for her radio, but hesitated. This wasn't the first overeager tourist she'd seen today. Still, something about the woman's determination set off warning bells. In the palace's security room, Captain Robert Wilson was briefing his team on the day's intelligence. We have credible information about a potential breach attempt. All units maintain maximum alertness. Mitchell, your post is crucial. Any suspicious activity near the East Gate needs immediate. His words were cut short by movement on one of the monitors. A woman in a floral dress was approaching the guard post where David stood at attention. The captain squinted at the screen, then reached for his radio. But before he could speak, Linda had already begun her performance. Hello, Mr. Guard. Linda's voice carried across the square, drawing attention from other tourists. I'm here to investigate the working conditions of our brave servicemen, especially my son David. Would you happen to know him? David Mitchell? About this tall. Has his mother's eyes? Behind his stoic expression, the guard felt his stomach drop. He knew that voice. Had heard it every day for 28 years. But his training kicked in. His posture remained perfect. His gaze fixed forward. Right now, he wasn't David Mitchell, son of Linda. He was a royal guard, and somewhere in this square was a very real threat to the palace's security. Linda, encouraged by her growing audience and their enthusiastic comments, was just getting started. She didn't realize she was about to turn a serious security operation into a viral nightmare, one that would force both mother and son to redefine their relationship in ways neither could imagine. And this was only the beginning. The morning sun had climbed higher over Windsor Palace, and Linda Mitchell's investigation was about to shift from mildly amusing to dangerously disruptive. Her live stream counter had hit 3,000 viewers, each notification ping fueling her confidence. "All right, my lovely followers, time to step up our game." Linda adjusted her sunglasses, flashing what she thought was a rebellious smile. "These guards think they can ignore a concerned mother?" Well, they don't know Linda Mitchell. Inside the palace's security command center, Captain Robert Wilson watched the monitors with growing concern. His eyes darted between the woman in the floral dress and 3 suspicious individuals who had just entered the square from different directions. "Status report," he barked into his radio. "East Gate secure," came David's voice, professional and detached despite his mother's presence mere feet away. "No movement from primary targets yet." Linda had positioned herself strategically between 2 guard posts, her live stream now capturing both stationed guards in frame. What she didn't realize was that one of them was her son David, and he was coordinating a complex security operation through subtle hand signals and coded radio responses. "Now, my dear viewers," Linda announced, her voice carrying across the square, "let me show you what these poor boys have to deal with. Those heavy uniforms standing in this heat, it's practically criminal." The growing crowd of tourists had begun to film the scene, creating a peculiar echo chamber of live streams and social media posts. Some found Linda's performance entertaining, others uncomfortable, but all were unwittingly becoming obstacles in a serious security operation. "You know what?" Linda continued, her voice rising with theatrical indignation. "I bet they don't even get water breaks. Let me check their skin for signs of dehydration. I am a mother after all." "Target 1 moving toward East Gate." Officer Emma Thompson's voice crackled over the security frequency. "Copy that," David responded, his voice steady despite his mother now approaching his position. "Maintaining visual." Linda, completely oblivious to the security situation unfolding around her, pulled a water bottle from her designer bag. Her live stream comments exploded. "OMG, she's actually going to do it. Queen behavior. This is going to be epic. Now everyone," she narrated to her phone, "watch how a mother's love breaks through all this silly ceremony. These boys need proper care, and if the palace won't provide it, then Linda Mitchell will." Captain Wilson grabbed his radio. "Mitchell, hold position. Thompson, intercept the civilian before she—" But it was too late. Linda had already reached David's post, water bottle extended like a weapon of mass disruption. "Here you go, dear," she announced loudly. "Let's get some hydration into you. I can't bear to think of any mother's son suffering in this heat." The irony of her not recognizing her own son was lost on Linda, but not on her increasingly engaged audience. Comments flooded her live stream. "Wait, isn't her son supposed to be one of them? She literally can't recognize her own kid. This is getting better by the second." As Linda persisted with her water bottle campaign, the 3 suspicious figures Captain Wilson had been tracking continued their subtle convergence toward the East Gate. They moved with practiced precision, using the growing crowd of onlookers as cover. Behind his stoic expression, David Mitchell was running complex calculations. His mother's disruption was creating exactly the kind of chaos that could compromise the entire operation. Yet breaking character to stop her would only make the situation worse. "Come on, dear," Linda coaxed, now barely a foot from David's face. "Your mother would want you to take care of yourself. I know I would die if my David was standing here getting heat stroke. Target 1 in position. Target 2 approaching checkpoint. Target 3 has visual on the gate." Linda, still holding her phone high, decided to up the ante. "Well, if you won't drink, let me at least check for signs of heat stroke. As a mother, I know exactly what to look for." In that moment, David Mitchell faced an impossible choice. His mother was seconds away from touching his face, potentially compromising not just his position, but the entire security operation. Yet any reaction would draw even more attention. Exactly what the real threats might be waiting for. The morning sun now cast shorter shadows across Queen's Square. The growing crowd of spectators created a perfect cover for anyone wanting to breach palace security. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Linda Mitchell's one-woman show had become the perfect diversion, though not for the reason she imagined. Now, everyone watching, Linda announced to her live stream, I'm going to demonstrate proper heat safety checks. These guards may be trained to stand still, but no protocol is more important than a mother's care. Captain Wilson had seen enough. Thompson, move in now. Mitchell, stand ready. All units, prepare for potential multiple breach attempts. Do not, I repeat, do not let those targets use this distraction. Queen's Square had transformed from a tourist attraction into a powder keg of tension. Linda Mitchell's live stream counter now topped 10,000 viewers, each new follower reinforcing her misguided sense of purpose. But beneath the surface spectacle, a far more dangerous situation was unfolding. Can you believe this, everyone? Linda gestured dramatically at the guard, her unrecognized son David. They're not even allowed to blink. I've been timing them. This is worse than I thought. Captain Wilson's jaw clenched as he watched the three suspicious figures continue their careful movements through the crowd. Thompson, status on the civilian disruption? Approaching target now, sir, Officer Emma Thompson replied, weaving through the gathered tourists. But the crowd's gotten thick. Everyone's stopping to film. Linda's performance had reached new heights of theatrical concern. She'd pulled out a small fan from her designer bag and was now attempting to create a cooling breeze for the guards. My David would never admit if he was too hot, she announced to her growing audience. These boys are all the same, so stubborn. Well, mother knows best. Behind his disciplined exterior, David Mitchell was tracking multiple threats simultaneously. His mother's increasingly bold attempts to help. Target 1 positioning near the gate security keypad. Target 2 photographing guard rotation patterns. Target 3 speaking quietly into what appeared to be a concealed radio. Officer Thompson's struggled approach through the crowd. The growing sea of phones recording every moment. Now, my lovely viewers, watch this. Linda pulled out a small umbrella, pink with floral patterns matching her dress. If the palace won't provide proper sun protection, this mama bear will. The live stream comments exploded. Queen behavior. She's actually doing it. Best palace tour ever. Someone stop her before she gets arrested. Target 1 had removed something from their pocket, a small device that glinted in the sunlight. Target 2's camera now focused exclusively on the guard rotation patterns. Target 3 reached slowly into their jacket. You know what? Linda's voice carried across the square. I think it's time we staged a proper protest. Who's with me? These working conditions are simply unacceptable. Captain Wilson slammed his fist on the desk. She's about to incite a crowd situation. Mitchell, maintain position. Thompson, double time it. All units be advised. Potential multiple breach attempt coinciding with civilian disruption. Emma Thompson could see Linda clearly now, the pink umbrella bobbing above the crowd like a signal flare. But between them stood dozens of tourists, all with phones raised, creating an unintentional human barrier. Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, Linda announced, her voice taking on a rally cry quality. It's time these guards had proper representation, and who better than a mother to fight for their rights? Her live stream numbers surged past 15,000. I propose a sit-in, Linda declared, her umbrella now fully extended. Right here, right now, who's with me? These boys need our support. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered, others backed away, but all kept filming. The scene had become a social media perfect storm, with Linda Mitchell as its oblivious eye. Captain Wilson watched in horror as the three targets used the mounting chaos to edge closer to their positions. All units be advised, multiple breach attempt imminent. Mitchell, stand ready. Thompson, neutralize that disruption now. And another thing. Linda's voice reached new heights of righteous indignation. These hats. In this heat. I wouldn't let my David wear such a thing. and I won't stand by while other mothers' sons suffer." The umbrella moved closer to David's face. The crowd pressed in. The 3 targets reached their final positions. Officer Thompson finally broke through the last row of tourists. And in that moment, everything changed. Red warning lights flashed across the security monitors as Captain Wilson watched the situation spiral beyond control. 3 separate security breaches were about to converge with a social media circus, all centered around an oblivious mother and her stone-faced son. "Breaking news, everyone." Linda's voice carried across Queen's Square, her pink umbrella now functioning as an impromptu protest sign. "We've just hit 20,000 viewers. The world needs to see how these brave boys are treated. All units be advised," his voice tight with tension. "Electronic interference detected near the East Gate. Possible communications blackout imminent. Switch to backup frequencies now." Completely unaware of the security crisis unfolding around her, Linda had begun organizing her impromptu protest. Her live stream comment section had become a riot of encouragement and warnings. "Go Mama Bear. Someone stop her before this gets bad. Best palace tour ever. Is she trying to get arrested?" Queen behavior. Target 1. Fingers moving across the security keypad, entering a complex sequence. Target 2. Signal jammer humming to life, disguised as a camera. Target 3. Hand finally emerging from jacket, gripping something metallic. "Now, my dedicated viewers," Linda announced, reaching into her designer bag. "I've come prepared. Who wants to help me make signs? These boys need our support." She pulled out several sheets of bright paper and markers, apparently having planned this protest all along. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Some tourists actually stepped forward to help. "We've lost cameras 3 through 7, an operator reported. "Signal interference spreading across the east sector." Captain Wilson grabbed his radio. "Mitchell, Thompson, comms may go dark. Maintain protocol Delta 7. Repeat, Delta 7. Through his unwavering gaze, David Mitchell processed the deteriorating situation. His mother was now distributing protest materials. Target 1 had successfully compromised the keypad. Target 2's device was disrupting security systems. Target 3 was positioning for what appeared to be a diversion. The crowd had become an unintentional security barrier. His own mother was about to become collateral damage. "Let's see them ignore this," Linda declared, holding up a hastily made sign reading, "Guards need breaks too. Come on, everyone, show your support." Emma Thompson finally broke through the outer edge of the crowd, but what she saw made her blood run cold. The protest had become perfect cover for the real threat, and she couldn't call for backup. "We've lost visual on sectors 1 through 4, the operator announced. "Backup cameras failing, radio interference spreading." Captain Wilson's face hardened. "Lock down all interior access points. Alert palace security. This is not a drill." "You know what?" Linda announced to her now viral livestream. "I think it's time we showed these guards some real support. Everyone with a sign, form a line right here." She began organizing people directly in front of the guard posts, unknowingly creating a human shield for the infiltration team. "Sir," an operator called out, "Palace security is reporting similar interference on the west side. This is coordinated." Captain Wilson's eyes narrowed. "They're using the woman's disruption as cover for something bigger. Mitchell, if you can still hear this, prepare for Protocol Omega." "This is history in the making, everyone," Linda declared, now standing dangerously close to David. "We're standing up for these brave boys. My David would be so proud if he could see his mother now." The tragic irony hung in the air as her son stood silent, watching threats converge on his position. "All remaining units," Captain Wilson's voice crackled through failing radios. "Be advised, Palace security confirms multiple breach attempts in progress. Consider all civilian disruptions as potential diversions. Prepare for immediate—" The radio went dead. The last functioning security camera in Queen's Square flickered and died, plunging the security room into partial blindness. But in that final frame, it captured something crucial. A fourth figure emerging from the crowd, someone not previously identified by the security team. "This is absolutely incredible," Linda exclaimed to her now viral live stream. completely oblivious to the real danger surrounding her. We've got over 50,000 viewers. The world is watching how these guards are treated. Captain Wilson slammed his emergency protocols folder onto the desk. Last known positions of all targets? The operator pulled up a frozen frame from moments before the blackout. Sir, there's something else. Look at Target 3's device. It's not what we thought. Now everyone, Linda announced, pulling something else from her seemingly bottomless designer bag. I've brought some refreshments for our brave boys, because that's what mothers do. She produced several bottles of water and began distributing them to her fellow protesters. But as she moved, she inadvertently created a pattern, one that perfectly masked the movements of the infiltration team. Sir, the operator's voice tight with concern, the civilian disruption. It's too perfect. Captain Wilson leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Explain. Her movements, the timing of her protest. It's creating exactly the cover they'd need for a coordinated breach. Emma Thompson, still struggling through the crowd, noticed something about Target 2's device. It wasn't just a signal jammer. It was specifically calibrated to the frequency used by Linda's live stream. Pull up everything we have on Linda Mitchell, Captain Wilson ordered. The operator's fingers flew across the keyboard. Sir, her social media activity. There are patterns, comments and suggestions pushing her toward this exact scenario. You know what's amazing? Linda beamed at her phone. How many supportive messages I've gotten lately. People suggesting I come here, telling me exactly how to help. The internet can be so wonderful. They've been playing her, Captain Wilson realized, using a mother's concern to create their perfect distraction. The operator pulled up more data. Sir, it goes deeper. Look at the timing of these comments. They're from the same cluster of accounts involved in last month's attempted breach at Buckingham Palace. Let me tell you all something, Linda continued, unaware of her manipulation. A mother knows when something isn't right. And all these people agreeing with me online, they see it too. The social engineering is sophisticated, the operator explained. They spent months building this, gaining her trust, making suggestions, building her confidence. They knew exactly which buttons to push. Captain Wilson's jaw clenched. They found the perfect asset, a mother's love for her son, and they turned it into a weapon. Emma Thompson had finally worked out the pattern. The random commenters on Linda's livestream were coordinating the entire operation. Each seemingly supportive message was a coded instruction to the infiltration team. You'll never believe what someone just suggested, Linda announced excitedly. They think we should all sing a song for the guards. Isn't that brilliant? Everyone gather round. Red emergency beacons pulsed silently across Windsor Palace as backup systems engaged. In Queen's Square, Linda Mitchell's impromptu protest had swelled to over 100 people, while her live stream viewer count approached 6 figures, exactly as the infiltration team had planned. Sir, the operator's voice cracked with urgency. Target 4 is moving. They're carrying something. Looks like an interface device. Captain Wilson's eyes locked onto the last working monitor. Cross-reference with known tech signatures. Now, this is simply amazing. Linda beamed at her phone, adjusting her designer sunglasses. Someone just suggested we do a group photo with all the guards. Everyone gather round. David Mitchell stood rigid at his post, processing multiple threats. His mother being used as an unwitting operative. 4 hostile targets converging on his position. A crowd of civilians in potential crossfire. Failed communications with command. The growing certainty that someone would get hurt. Everyone watching, this is history in the making, Linda declared, organizing the crowd. We're going to show the world how these brave boys are treated, and look, this guard here hasn't moved an inch. Such dedication. She gestured toward David, still not recognizing her own son. The operator's face went pale. Sir, the interface device. It's matching patterns from the Edinburgh Castle breach. Dear God, Captain Wilson whispered. They're not here for the palace. They're after the Royal Security Network. Emma Thompson, now close enough to hear the infiltration team's whispered communications, caught fragments that chilled her blood. Network access. Royal Protection Protocol that complete system compromise where... Now everyone, Linda announced, Let's show these guards some real appreciation. Form a circle around them. Show them they're not alone. The crowd began moving, creating a human barrier that would make security response nearly impossible. Target 1. Network access point located. Target 2. Interference at maximum. Target 3. Escape routes secured. Target 4. Beginning system breach. It's a cascade attack, the operator realized. They're using the civilian phones as access points. Every live stream, every photo, they're all potential breach points. Captain Wilson grabbed his emergency phone. "Get me MI5 now." "Oh, this is perfect," Linda exclaimed, reading another planted comment. "Someone suggested we all hold up our phones with flashlights on, create a light show for our brave guards." Emma Thompson had finally reached the edge of the crowd, close enough to see the full scope of the operation. She keyed her backup radio. "Sir, the whole thing is a smokescreen. They're using civilian devices to crack the Royal Security Network." "Shut it down," Captain Wilson ordered. "Shut down everything. Better a blackout than a complete breach." The operator's fingers flew across keyboards. "Sir, we can't. The civilian devices. They're already in the system. Shutting down now would lock them in." "This is the moment, everyone," Linda declared proudly. "Show these guards they're not alone. Show my David, wherever he is, that his mother made a difference." The moment hung in Queen's Square like suspended glass, ready to shatter. Linda Mitchell's phone raised high, streaming to over 200,000 viewers, the infiltration team in position, and David Mitchell, still as stone, about to change everything. "System breach at 89%, the operator called out, fingers flying across keyboards. "Royal Security Network firewalls failing." Captain Wilson watched in horror as red warning lights cascaded across his screens. "How many civilian devices are compromised?" "Over 100 phones in the square alone, sir. They're using them as parallel processing units." "This is absolutely incredible." Linda beamed at her record-breaking audience. "We've got supporters from around the world. Someone even suggested we all move closer to show our solidarity. Isn't the internet wonderful?" Emma Thompson fought against the surging crowd, her training screaming that something was wrong. The suggested movements, the perfectly timed comments, the strategic positioning, it was all too coordinated. "Now everyone," Linda announced, reading another planted comment. "Let's all take one step closer to these brave boys, show them we care, and look at this one here. Such perfect posture." She moved toward David, still not recognizing her own son behind the ceremonial uniform. "Sir," the operator's voice cracked. "The network breach. It's not just about palace security. They're trying to access the entire Royal Protection Protocol," Captain Wilson finished grimly. "Every safe house, every evacuation route, every security measure for the entire royal family." "You know what?" Linda said to her phone. "I think this guard deserves special recognition. He hasn't moved an inch. My David could learn something about dedication from him." "Breach at 95%, the operator announced. "Once they're in, they'll have access to everything. Royal residences, travel routes, security protocols." Captain Wilson grabbed his phone. "Get me direct lines to all royal residences. Prepare for immediate evacuation." "Everyone watching," Linda declared proudly, "this is how we make change happen. Let's show these guards that mothers around the world support them." She reached out toward David's uniform, intending to straighten an already perfect medal. And then it happened. As Linda's hand approached David's uniform, a slight breeze shifted his ceremonial plume. For the first time, she caught a clear glimpse of his eyes she had known for 28 years. The phone lowered slightly. "David?" "David Mitchell," she whispered, all pretense dropping away. "My God, you're the guard I've been." Her voice trailed off as the magnitude of her actions began to dawn. "Sir, the breach. It's slowing. The disruption in the live stream." Captain Wilson leaned forward. "It's their weak point. The whole operation depends on her performance." Queen's Square froze in a moment of perfect tension. Linda Mitchell's live stream, watched by hundreds of thousands, captured her face as realization dawned. Her son, Her David had been the very guard she'd been taunting, and she'd unknowingly made him a target. "The live stream's pattern is breaking," the operator reported. "Their network access is destabilizing." Captain Wilson leaned forward. "Thompson Mitchell, if you can hear this, the breach attempt is vulnerable. Standing orders revoked. Take them down." "I point." "I don't understand," Linda stammered, her confident persona crumbling. "David, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you stop me?" Her phone dipped, disrupting the careful angles the infiltration team had orchestrated. Emma Thompson seized the moment of confusion, pushing through the destabilized crowd. Years of training had taught her to recognize a critical weakness when she saw one. David Mitchell maintained his stance, but now his eyes met his mother's directly. In that gaze lay everything he couldn't say. "Everyone. Linda's voice shook as she addressed her stream. "I need to. I mean, this guard. My son." The comments section exploded. "Wait, what? OMG plot twist. No way this is real. Keep going, Linda. Don't stop now." "Sir, the breach attempt is shifting," the operator called out. "They're trying to route through secondary devices." Captain Wilson's jaw set. "Track those signals. Find their backup points." Target 1. Frantically recoding access attempts. Target 2. Boosting signal strength. Target 3. Moving to contain the situation. Target 4. Implementing emergency protocols. All this time, Linda whispered, tears forming behind her designer sunglasses. "I was trying to protect you, but I've been... Oh God, what have I done?" "Breach attempts spreading across multiple channels," the operator reported. "They're getting desperate." Captain Wilson grabbed his radio. "All units. They're going to make a move. Stand ready." "I've been such a fool," Linda said, her voice carrying across the now quieting square. "All those helpful comments, all those suggestions, they were using me, weren't they? Using a mother's love against her own son." Target 3 pulled something from their jacket, a small device with a blinking red light. Through the square's speakers came a computer-generated voice. "Security breach detected. Initiating lockdown." "David," Linda whispered, finally understanding everything. "All this time, you were protecting something so much bigger than just standing guard. And I almost ruined everything." "Sir," the operator's voice shook. "They're initiating a mass panic protocol if that crowd stampedes." Captain Wilson finished the thought. "We'll have casualties, and in the chaos." The artificial voice echoing through Queen's Square grew louder, its mechanical tone spreading panic through the crowd. "Security breach detected. Initiating lockdown." The sound bounced off ancient walls, amplifying the fear already beginning to ripple through the gathered tourists. Linda Mitchell stood frozen, her phone still broadcasting to hundreds of thousands of viewers, as she watched her son maintain his stoic pose despite the chaos erupting around them. In the security room, Captain Wilson's voice cut through the mayhem. "All units, maintain positions. Do not let them use this panic." His eyes darted between monitors as the crowd began to surge and shift. The infiltration team had played their final card, mass panic as a cover for their escape. But they hadn't counted on a mother's newfound understanding. Linda's hand trembled as she lowered her phone slightly, her voice barely a whisper. "David, tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this." But David Mitchell maintained his forward gaze, decades of training warring with his instinct to protect his mother. Around them, the carefully orchestrated chaos was reaching its peak. Officer Emma Thompson pushed through the shifting crowd, her training allowing her to spot the infiltration team's movements, even as they tried to use the panic as cover. Target 1 had abandoned their subtle approach, now openly accessing their breach equipment. Target 2's signal disruption device hummed at dangerous levels, while Target 3 and 4 moved to position themselves for their final attempt. The security room operator's voice cracked with urgency. "Sir, they're making one last attempt at the network. Multiple access points, brute force attack." Captain Wilson stood rigid, watching as years of security protocols faced their greatest test. "Hold the line," he ordered. Whatever happens, we hold the line. In the square, Linda Mitchell finally understood the true weight of her actions. Her social media campaign, her righteous protest, her maternal concern, all had been weaponized against the very institution her son had sworn to protect. The comments on her live stream continued to flood in, but now they seemed sinister, manipulative. Each suggestion, each word of encouragement had been carefully crafted to create this exact moment of vulnerability. The crowd's movement became more frantic as the lockdown announcement continued to loop. Tourists pushed against each other, creating waves of human panic that threatened to overwhelm the square's security checkpoints. Through it all, David stood immobile, a point of stillness in a sea of chaos. But his eyes never left the infiltration team members as they made their final moves. Linda's voice found new strength as she turned to address her live stream audience. "Stop," she commanded, surprising herself with her authority. "Everyone watching, everyone here, just stop. We're being used. I'm being used." Her words carried across the square, causing a momentary pause in the panic. The infiltration team members froze, their carefully laid plans suddenly threatened by the very voice they had manipulated for months. In the security room, the operator leaned forward. "Sir, the breach attempts are slowing. The live stream, it's disrupting their network access." Captain Wilson allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes the best defense is a mother's truth. Officer Thompson seized the moment of confusion, signaling to her hidden colleagues. As Linda continued to speak, security team members began to move through the crowd, identifying and isolating the infiltration team members. The panic began to subside as Linda's voice carried authority and genuine concern. "I came here today thinking I was fighting for something," Linda continued, tears now flowing freely. "But I was wrong. These guards, my son, they're not just standing here for show. They're protecting something precious, something I almost helped destroy." Her words reached through screens across the world, turning the tide of social media sentiment in real time. The infiltration team made their desperate final move. Target 1 activated their breach sequence, Target 2 maxed out their signal disruptor, and Targets 3 and 4 moved to create a final distraction. But they had lost their greatest weapon. The unwitting cooperation of a mother's love turned to righteous anger. David Mitchell witnessed everything through his unchanging stance. He saw Officer Thompson closing in on Target 1, saw the security team surrounding Target 2. He tracked Targets 3 and 4 as they realized their plan had failed. And most importantly, he saw his mother transform from an unwitting pawn into a crucial ally. Linda stepped closer to her son, but this time with understanding rather than challenge. "These guards," she spoke to her audience, "they're not just standing here, they're standing for something. And I'm standing with them." She ended her live stream with a gesture that needed no words, a simple, respectful step back from her son's post. The security room erupted in controlled activity as the infiltration team's plan crumbled. "Breach attempts stopped," the operator reported. "Signal disruption failing. We're regaining control of all systems." Captain Wilson nodded grimly. "Take them down. All of them." The square became a scene of swift, professional action. Security teams emerged from their hidden positions, while plainclothes officers moved to contain the remaining panic. The infiltration team members found themselves suddenly exposed, their careful planning undone by the very social media weapon they had tried to use. Through it all, David maintained his post, his duty unchanged despite the personal drama that had unfolded around him. But now his stance carried new meaning. Not just as a guard, but as a son whose mother had chosen truth over spectacle, understanding over interference. Linda Mitchell stood quietly to the side as security officers efficiently rounded up the infiltration team members. Her phone remained dark, her live stream ended. She watched her son with new eyes, seeing not just her boy in a uniform, but a man who had sworn to protect something greater than himself. And in that moment, she made her own silent vow, to protect him by understanding, not by interfering. The artificial voice in the square finally fell silent, replaced by the natural sounds of order being restored. The morning sun continued its arc over Windsor Palace, illuminating a scene very different from the one it had found hours earlier. A mother had learned the true meaning of protection, A son had maintained his duty despite personal cost, and the ancient walls of Windsor Palace stood firm, guarded by those who understood that some things are worth more than social media fame. The morning sun reached its zenith over Windsor Palace as the final act of this extraordinary drama began to unfold. The square, moments ago teetering on the edge of chaos, held its collective breath as security teams moved with precision through the crowd. Linda Mitchell stood silent, her live stream ended, watching as her social media crusade transformed into something far more meaningful than viral fame. Officer Emma Thompson approached Target 1 with calculated steps, her voice carrying quiet authority. "Step away from the device. Hands where I can see them." The infiltration team leader's fingers hesitated over their keyboard, calculations running behind desperate eyes. The entire Royal Security Network hung in the balance of the next few seconds. In the security room, Captain Wilson's voice remained steady despite the tension. "All units be advised. Suspects may have dead man switches on their devices. Approach with extreme caution." The operator's hands flew across multiple keyboards, attempting to counter any last-minute breach attempts. Years of security protocols faced their ultimate test in these crucial moments. David Mitchell maintained his ceremonial stance, but his training allowed him to track every movement in the square. He saw Target 2's hand drift toward a concealed pocket, noticed Target 3's subtle shift toward the nearest exit route, and caught Target 4's almost imperceptible nod to their leader. More importantly, he saw his mother's face as she finally, truly understood the weight of his duty. Linda's voice broke the tense silence carrying across the square with newfound purpose. "You used me," she said, addressing not just her former audience but the infiltration team directly. "You used a mother's love, her concern, her desire to protect her child, but you didn't count on one thing. A mother can also learn from her mistakes." The security room operator's screen suddenly flashed red. "Sir!" Energy spike from Target 2's device. "They're trying to overload the disruptor." Captain Wilson grabbed his radio, but before he could speak, Linda Mitchell had already begun moving. Years of maternal instinct guided her steps as she positioned herself between the crowd and potential danger. Target 2's device emitted a high-pitched whine, drawing nervous glances from the gathered tourists. Officer Thompson's voice cut through the growing tension. "Everyone clear the square. Now!" The crowd began to move, but not in panic this time. Linda's earlier words had transformed the atmosphere from chaos to cooperation. Inside the palace's security center, screens flickered with warning messages. "Multiple breach attempts detected," the operator called out. "They're making their final push." Captain Wilson's jaw set firmly as he watched the crisis reach its peak. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Shut down everything except essential systems." David's perfect stillness belied the rapid calculations running through his mind. His military training recognized the tactical situation deteriorating, but his newfound understanding of his mother's presence added an unexpected variable to the equation. The infiltration team had lost their social media smokescreen, but that made them more dangerous, not less. Target 1's fingers suddenly flew across their keyboard, initiating what appeared to be their final breach attempt. "Now!" they shouted, and the other team members moved in coordinated desperation. Target 2 activated their overloaded device, Target 3 pulled something from their jacket, and Target 4 moved toward the palace gates. The next few seconds unfolded like a perfectly choreographed dance of duty and protection. Officer Thompson tackled Target 1, disrupting their breach attempt mid-sequence. Security team members emerged from hidden positions, neutralizing Target 4 before they could reach the gates. And Linda Mitchell, acting on pure maternal instinct, stepped directly into Target 3's path. "Enough!" Linda commanded, her voice carrying the authority that only a mother can muster. "You failed. And do you know why? Because you thought a mother's love was a weakness to exploit. You were wrong. It's the strongest force in this square." In the security room, screens began to stabilize. "Breach attempts failing, sir," the operator reported. "Their network access is completely cut off." Captain Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "Sometimes the best security isn't in our protocols. It's in the human element we can't plan for. Target 2's device reached critical levels, its whine becoming unbearable. David Mitchell faced the moment every Royal Guard trains for, but hopes never comes. Without breaking protocol, without moving from his post, he caught his mother's eye. In that split-second glance passed decades of understanding, from mother to son, from protector to protector. Linda understood immediately. She turned to the crowd, her voice carrying the same authority that had once commanded David to clean his room, finish his homework, follow his dreams. "Everyone back! Move behind the security line!" The tourists responded instinctively to her tone, creating a safe distance just as Target 2's device overloaded. The security team moved with practiced efficiency, containing the device's failure and apprehending the remaining infiltration team members. Officer Thompson secured Target 1's equipment, ensuring no data had been successfully breached. Through it all, David maintained his post, his disciplined stance now a symbol not just of ceremony, but of the unwavering dedication to duty that his mother had finally come to understand. Captain Wilson's voice crackled over the security channel. "All units, threats contained. Excellent work, everyone." But his eyes remained fixed on the monitors, watching as something extraordinary unfolded in the square. Linda Mitchell, former social media crusader turned unexpected ally, stood quietly near her son's post. Her presence no longer a disruption, but a silent affirmation of the very principles she had earlier challenged. The morning sun continued its journey across Windsor Palace's ancient stones, illuminating a scene transformed. The infiltration team sat secured and defeated, their sophisticated plan undone not by technology or protocols, but by the very human element they had tried to exploit. Security teams efficiently processed the scene while tourists watched from a safe distance, their phones lowered, understanding that some moments deserve respect rather than viral fame. And in the heart of Queen's Square, a mother and son stood in their respective positions, one in ceremonial uniform maintaining his duty, the other in quiet dignity, finally understanding the true meaning of protection. The security crisis had been averted, but more importantly, a deeper truth had emerged. Sometimes the greatest acts of love come not from intervention, but from understanding and respect. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Queen's Square as the last of the security teams completed their work. The infiltration team had been quietly removed, their sophisticated equipment secured as evidence. Tourist crowds had thinned to a respectful distance, phones finally lowered, understanding that they had witnessed something far more significant than a viral moment. Linda Mitchell sat on a bench near the palace gates, watching her son maintain his post with newfound appreciation. The events of the morning played through her mind like scenes from a movie she finally understood. Every gesture, every stance, every moment of stillness now carried meaning she had been too blind to see before. In the palace security room, Captain Wilson reviewed the after-action reports with careful attention. "Play back the social media manipulation timeline," he instructed the operator. "We need to understand exactly how they did this." The screens filled with months of carefully orchestrated comments, suggestions, and manufactured outrage, all designed to weaponize a mother's concern. The operator highlighted key moments in the infiltration team's social media campaign. "They started small, sir. Just innocent comments at first. Those guards must get so tired, someone should speak up for them. They built her up gradually, made her feel like she was fighting for something important." Captain Wilson nodded grimly. They nearly succeeded, if she hadn't recognized her son. Outside, Officer Emma Thompson approached Linda with 2 cups of tea. "Thought you might need this," she said, offering one to the subdued woman. Linda accepted with a grateful smile, her designer sunglasses now hanging unused from her collar. "I've been so foolish," she admitted, watching the steam rise from her cup. "All this time, I thought I was protecting him." Emma sat beside her, her official duties complete but her human understanding engaged. "You know, Mrs. Mitchell, in training they teach us about different kinds of threats, but they never prepared us for someone like you, someone acting out of love even if it was misguided." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Your son is one of our best, you know, and today, in a way, You helped prove why. The afternoon light caught David's ceremonial buttons as he maintained his post. His shift would end soon, but for now, he remained the embodiment of duty and discipline. Linda watched him with new eyes, seeing not just her son in a uniform, but a man who had chosen to stand for something greater than himself. Inside the security center, the technical analysis continued. The breach attempt was sophisticated, the operator explained. They needed a human element to create enough chaos to slip through our defenses. Mrs. Mitchell's social media presence gave them that opportunity. Captain Wilson studied the data scrolling across his screens. And in the end, that same human element became their undoing. Linda's tea had cooled untouched as she contemplated the morning's events. I keep thinking about all those people watching my live stream, she confided to Officer Thompson. Thousands of them, cheering me on, encouraging me to push harder. How many of them were real? How many were part of their plan? Emma's response was gentle but firm. Sometimes the loudest voices on social media are the ones we should trust the least. The palace clock chimed the hour, its deep tones carrying across the square. Linda watched as a new group of tourists approached the gates, phones raised to capture the iconic scene. But now she noticed something different. The way they maintained a respectful distance. The quiet appreciation for the ceremony they witnessed. Had she ever really seen it before today? In the security room, Captain Wilson received the preliminary forensic report on the infiltration team's equipment. Sir, the network breach attempt was just the beginning, the analyst reported. If they had succeeded, they would have had access to every royal security protocol in the system. Wilson's expression remained steady. Instead, they learned something about the human firewall. Sometimes the strongest security comes from unexpected sources. Officer Thompson's radio crackled with an update. The infiltration team members were talking, revealing a complex network of social media manipulation extending far beyond this single attempt. Linda listened, understanding now how she had been merely one thread in a larger tapestry of deception. I thought I was special, she said quietly. All those followers, all that support. I never questioned why it felt so perfect. The afternoon light began to soften, signaling the approaching end of David's shift. Linda watched as a relief guard approached, their ceremonial step marking the coming change. He wanted this since he was a boy, she told Emma, memories flowing freely now. Always standing so straight, practicing his march in the garden. I thought he was just playing. I never understood he was following a calling. Inside the palace, Captain Wilson prepared his final report on the incident. Note in the record, he dictated, that the success of this operation hinged on an unexpected factor, the transformation of a security risk into a crucial ally through the power of personal recognition and understanding. The operator paused in his typing. Sir, should we recommend changes to social media monitoring protocols? Wilson considered this. Add it to the report but emphasize that our best defense remains human awareness and connection. Linda stood as the guard change ceremony began. She watched with new appreciation as her son executed each movement with perfect precision. The tourist crowd had grown slightly, drawn by the ceremony, but now she saw them differently too. How many were genuine visitors? How many were potential threats? The weight of her son's duty pressed on her heart with new understanding. The relief guard took their position as David prepared to march away. Linda felt tears welling up, but these were different from her earlier emotional display. These were tears of pride, of understanding, of respect for the man her son had become. Officer Thompson stood beside her, a quiet presence offering silent support. The sun touched the palace walls with golden light as David Mitchell completed his final ceremonial movements. In those perfect practiced steps, Linda saw everything she had missed before: the dedication, the discipline, the deep commitment to something greater than oneself. Her social media crusade felt like a distant memory now, replaced by something far more meaningful: true understanding. As the golden afternoon light bathed Queen's Square, Detective Inspector Rachel Murray arrived to debrief Linda Mitchell. She found the woman sitting quietly on her bench, a cold cup of tea forgotten in her hands, watching her son's unwavering stance with new eyes. The detective had seen many witnesses to security incidents, but rarely one who had undergone such a profound transformation in a single day. "Mrs. Mitchell," she began gently, settling beside Linda, "I need to ask you about the social media accounts that influenced your actions. When did they first make contact?" Linda's hands tightened around her teacup as memories surfaced. "It started so innocently," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just little comments at first, supporting what I was already thinking about the guards' working conditions. In the Palace Security Center, Captain Wilson and his team had begun mapping the extensive network of fake accounts that had manipulated Linda's growing online presence. Look at this pattern," the operator pointed out. "They didn't just respond to her posts, they anticipated them, planted ideas days in advance, then reinforced them when she acted. The web of deception spread across multiple platforms, a digital spider's web designed to catch a mother's concern and twist it into a security breach. Officer Thompson had remained nearby, her official duties complete, but her instincts telling her to stay close to Linda. She watched as the woman's expression shifted between shame, understanding, and determination. "You know," Emma offered carefully, "in all my years of service, I've never seen anyone grasp their mistake so completely and turn it around so effectively." Linda looked up, gratitude flickering across her features. "I keep thinking about all the times I visited David, trying to convince him to find a normal job. I never understood that for him. This is normal. This is necessary." She paused, watching a group of tourists snap photos of her son's post. "He's not just standing there. He's standing for something." Detective Murray made notes as Linda continued to speak, revealing the careful way the infiltration team had built her confidence, stoked her maternal concerns, and guided her toward increasingly disruptive actions. "They made me feel powerful," Linda admitted, her voice catching. "Like I was leading some great movement for change, but I was just their puppet, wasn't I?" Inside the security center, the technical analysis had revealed the full scope of the operation. "Sir," the operator called to Captain Wilson, "these accounts weren't just manipulating Mrs. Mitchell. They were using her influence to test our response protocols, mapping our security patterns through her escalating disruptions." Wilson studied the data with growing concern. "They turned a mother's love into a security probe. Every time she acted, they learned more about our procedures." He shook his head, admiring the sophistication while despising the manipulation. And they nearly succeeded. Back in the square, Linda had begun scrolling through her phone, seeing her months of posts with new understanding. "Look at this," she showed Officer Thompson. "Every time I expressed doubt, they'd swoop in with encouragement. Every time I hesitated, they'd remind me I was fighting for all the guards. They knew exactly which buttons to push." Emma studied the posts, her security training identifying the subtle manipulation techniques. "They played on your maternal instincts, your desire to protect not just David, but all the guards. They made you feel like a champion for a cause that didn't exist." The afternoon had begun to cool, but David maintained his position with unwavering discipline. Linda watched him now with a mother's love tempered by new respect. "You know what hurts the most?" she confided to Emma. "All those months I thought I was helping him, fighting for him, but I was actually making his job harder, putting him at risk." Detective Murray's questioning had revealed another layer of the infiltration team's sophistication. "They didn't just use your social media presence," she explained to Linda. "They studied your relationship with your son, used your history of protective behavior to predict how you'd act. This wasn't just a security breach attempt. It was a masterclass in psychological manipulation." In the security center, Captain Wilson received word that the interrogation of the infiltration team had yielded crucial information. "Sir, they've been planning this for over a year. Mrs. Mitchell wasn't their first target, but she was their most successful, until today." Linda stood suddenly, her movement drawing concerned glances from nearby security personnel. But she merely walked to the edge of the permitted area, as close to David's post as regulations allowed. She stood there watching her son with tears streaming freely down her face, not the dramatic tears of her earlier performance, but quiet tears of understanding and regret. Officer Thompson approached carefully. "Mrs. Mitchell?" Linda didn't turn, her eyes fixed on her son's disciplined stance. "I was so wrong," she said softly. "All this time I thought I needed to protect him from this duty, but he was protecting all of us, even from me." She wiped her eyes with dignified composure. "I'm so proud of him, Emma. Not despite his service, but because of it." The sun continued its slow descent, casting longer shadows across Queen's Square. David Mitchell maintained his post, unaware of the profound transformation his mother was experiencing just yards away. Or perhaps, through his unwavering gaze, he saw and understood everything, his silence now a different kind of protection, allowing his mother the space to find her own understanding. Detective Murray concluded her interview, closing her notebook with quiet respect for the woman before her. "Mrs. Mitchell, your testimony will be crucial in understanding how these groups operate. Your experience, painful as it is, might help prevent others from being manipulated the same way." Linda nodded, finally understanding that her story had value not as a viral sensation, but as a warning and a lesson. She reached for her phone one last time, not to go live or post updates, but to delete the social media apps that had been weaponized against her love for her son. The afternoon light painted Windsor Palace in deepening golden hues as Linda Mitchell stood in quiet vigil near her son's post. She had arrived that morning as a social media crusader, armed with righteous indignation and a floral designer bag. She would leave as something else entirely, a mother who had learned that true protection sometimes means standing back, standing proud, and letting your child stand for something greater than themselves. The evening shadows lengthened across Queen's Square as David Mitchell's shift finally drew to a close. Linda sat on her bench, watched her son's final moments at his post, with a profound mixture of pride and humility. The day's events had transformed not just her understanding, but her entire worldview. Captain Wilson emerged from the Palace Security Center, his stride purposeful as he approached Linda. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, his official tone softened by respect. "There's something you need to see." He held a tablet displaying a comprehensive analysis of the social media manipulation that had led to this day. Inside the security briefing room, Linda faced a wall of screens showing the intricate web of deception that had ensnared her. Hundreds of fake accounts, thousands of coordinated comments, all orchestrated to turn a mother's love into a security vulnerability. The operator walked her through the timeline, highlighting key moments when her genuine concern had been skillfully redirected. "Look here," the operator pointed to a cluster of interactions. "Every time you expressed worry about the guards' working conditions, these accounts would amplify your concerns, suggest more dramatic actions." Linda watched as months of her online activism was dissected, revealing the careful manipulation behind every viral moment. Detective Murray added her insights from the infiltration team's interrogation. "They studied you, Mrs. Mitchell. Your social media history, your relationship with David, even your shopping patterns. They knew exactly when and how to approach you." The revelation struck Linda like a physical blow. Her maternal instincts had been not just observed, but weaponized. Outside, David had completed his shift and changed into civilian clothes. He found his mother in the briefing room, surrounded by the evidence of her unwitting role in the security breach attempt. Their eyes met, and for the first time that day, mother and son faced each other as equals, each protecting something precious in their own way. "Mom," David began, his voice gentle but firm. Linda raised her hand, stopping him. "No, David. Let me speak first." She straightened her shoulders, facing her son with new dignity. "I owe you an apology, not just for today, but for every time I failed to understand the importance of what you do." The security team quietly withdrew, giving mother and son privacy while maintaining surveillance of the sensitive area. Through the windows, the last rays of sunlight painted Windsor Palace in deep gold, a reminder of the ancient traditions David had sworn to protect. "All those times I pushed you to get a normal job," Linda continued, her voice steady despite her emotions. "I was thinking only of myself, of my idea of protection. I never saw that you had chosen something far more important than comfort or convenience." David moved to sit beside his mother, his ceremonial uniform replaced by casual clothes, but his bearing still carrying the discipline of his training. "Mom, you were trying to protect me in the only way you knew how." His voice carried understanding rather than accusation. Linda shook her head, gesturing at the screens still displaying the network of manipulation. "Look at what they did, David. They used my love for you, my need to protect you, and turned it into a weapon. And I let them, because I was too proud, too sure I knew best." In the security center, Captain Wilson reviewed the final analysis with his team. "Make sure this goes into the training materials," he instructed. "Social engineering isn't just about technology anymore. It's about understanding and exploiting human relationships." Officer Thompson, completing her shift report, added her own observations. "The most sophisticated attack isn't always the one that breaches our firewalls," she noted. "Sometimes it's the one that turns love into a liability." Back in the briefing room, Linda and David sat in companionable silence, watching the evening settle over the palace grounds. "You know," Linda said finally, "I spent so much time trying to change things for you. I never asked if you wanted things to change." She turned to face her son. "Tell me about your work, David. Help me understand what it truly means to you." David considered his words carefully, years of security training balancing with filial devotion. "It's not just about standing guard, Mom. It's about being part of something larger than ourselves. Every day we protect not just the palace, but what it represents: tradition, stability, continuity." Linda nodded, remembering how the infiltration team had nearly used her maternal instincts to compromise those very values. "I think I understand now. Sometimes protecting someone means respecting their choices, even when those choices take them into danger." The evening had fully settled over Windsor Palace, the ancient stones now lit by carefully positioned floodlights. In the distance, tourists still milled about Queen's Square, taking photos and admiring the palace's nighttime grandeur. Linda watched them with new awareness, understanding now that each visitor represented both the reason for and potential threat to her son's duty. "I've made a decision," she announced, pulling out her phone one last time. David watched as his mother opened her social media accounts and began systematically deleting them. "No more crusades, no more viral videos. Some things are more important than likes and shares." Captain Wilson, passing by the briefing room, caught this moment of transformation. He paused in the doorway, nodding approvingly. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, causing both mother and son to look up, "what you're doing right now, that's also protecting the palace in its own way." Linda smiled, a genuine expression far removed from her earlier social media performer's grin. "I'm learning that protection comes in many forms," she said, looking at her son with pride. "Sometimes it's standing guard at a post, and sometimes it's knowing when to stand down." The night had fully embraced Windsor Palace, the floodlights casting dramatic shadows across its ancient walls. In the briefing room, mother and son sat together, their relationship transformed by the day's events. They had each learned something vital about protection, duty, and the complex ways love can both strengthen and challenge the bonds between parent and child. 1 month after the events at Windsor Palace, Linda Mitchell sat in her garden enjoying her morning tea without a phone in sight. The viral fame of her protest had faded, replaced by something far more valuable: genuine understanding. Her kitchen table, once cluttered with social media planning notes, now held a handwritten letter from Captain Wilson, thanking her for her cooperation in strengthening palace security protocols. The morning newspaper carried a small article about the infiltration team's conviction. Their sophisticated plan to breach the royal security network had failed, thanks to an unexpected combination of professional duty and maternal love. Linda smiled at the irony. She had indeed made a difference at Windsor Palace, just not in the way she had originally intended. In the Palace Security Center, Captain Wilson had incorporated the incident into their training programs. The Mitchell Protocol, as it came to be known, taught security personnel to recognize and respond to social engineering attempts that targeted family relationships. The footage of Linda's transformation from unwitting threat to crucial ally became required viewing for all new recruits. David Mitchell continued his duties at Windsor Palace, his reputation enhanced rather than diminished by the incident. His fellow guards respected the way he had maintained his post despite personal pressure, and his superiors noted his exceptional discipline under extraordinary circumstances. But it was the subtle nod of appreciation he now received from tourists that meant the most. Somehow, the true meaning of his service had become more visible to the public. Officer Emma Thompson had been promoted to lead a new social media security unit, her handling of the incident marking her as uniquely qualified to address modern security challenges. She often thought of Linda Mitchell's words that day. Sometimes the strongest protection comes from understanding, not interference. Linda's designer bags and protest signs had been replaced by a simple visitor's pass to Windsor Palace. Once a month, she would quietly visit, not to challenge or change, but to appreciate. She would stand at the appropriate distance, watching her son with pride, understanding now that his stillness contained more strength than any dramatic gesture she could have made. The infiltration team's sophisticated plan had revealed something unexpected about modern security. Sometimes the greatest threats don't come from complex technology, but from the manipulation of basic human emotions. And sometimes the strongest defense isn't in firewalls or protocols, but in the transformation of understanding. Today, Linda sat in her garden, reading a different kind of message. Not viral comments or social media trends, but a simple note from her son. "Coming for dinner Sunday. Don't worry about the uniform. I'll change first." She smiled at his gentle humor, appreciating how their relationship had evolved into something deeper than her previous protests could have ever achieved. The sound of her neighbor's phone notification reminded her of her former life, constantly chasing likes and shares. But Linda had found something more meaningful: real influence, born not from viral moments but from genuine understanding. Her story had become part of palace security training, her experience helping protect not just the guards, but the very institution she had once sought to challenge. In Queen's Square, tourists still took photos of the guards, but there was a subtle change in their behavior. Perhaps Linda's story had spread in the right way, teaching respect rather than encouraging disruption. The guards had become more than social media props. They were recognized as professionals performing a vital duty. Captain Wilson had summarized it best in his security briefing. "The Mitchell incident teaches us that our greatest security assets can emerge from unexpected places. Sometimes it takes a mother learning to protect differently to help us all protect better." David had found his own way to honor his mother's transformation. During his breaks, he would sometimes share stories of his duty with younger guards, teaching them that maintaining discipline didn't mean abandoning compassion. His mother's journey had added a new dimension to his understanding of service. The palace grounds flourished in the summer sun, its ancient stones standing witness to this modern tale of duty, love, and understanding. Tourists still gathered, phones still clicked, guards still stood their posts. But something had changed. A deeper appreciation for the complex dance of tradition and security, protection, and respect. Linda finished her tea, thinking about how far she had come from that morning when she had arrived at Windsor Palace armed with righteous indignation and a designer bag. She had sought to go viral, to be a voice for change. Instead, she had found a deeper truth: that real change often comes not from demanding it, but from understanding why things are the way they are. As the morning light played across her garden, Linda smiled at the memory of her last conversation with Captain Wilson. "Mrs. Mitchell," he had said, "your story will protect Windsor Palace far better than any security camera ever could." She understood now what he meant. Her journey from social media crusader to thoughtful parent had become a testament to the power of true understanding. The guards still stood their posts at Windsor Palace, David among them, their duty unchanged, but somehow more deeply appreciated. And in her quiet garden, Linda Mitchell had found her own form of guard duty, protecting something precious not through dramatic protest, but through genuine understanding and respect. Fade to closing shot of Windsor Palace at sunset. The next time you see a royal guard standing still as stone, remember this story. Sometimes the greatest acts of love come not from trying to change someone, but from learning to understand why they stand so still, so strong, so dedicated to their duty. Key messages. True protection can take many forms. Understanding triumphs over interference. Real influence comes from genuine growth. Some duties are beyond social media's reach. The power of transformed perspectives. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.